What experiments tests do you think the government are doing that we have no idea about? They're learning so much about us through social media right out, they need to do human testing right now. Can't test biological weapons on social media though. Sometimes it feels like these YouTube stars are biological weapons. Misdirection. Some real shit goes down and we're preoccupied by things on purpose. The Panama Papers thing just flew right the hell under the radar simply because no major news organization said a word about it. That's all it takes for something that huge to be buried. Is CNN doesn't talk about it. Emma Watson is actively evading taxes, almost can't blame her, and nobody gives a shit. FB trying to track a group of truckers who work together as serial killers club. Covering for each other and dumping bodies all over. This is very specific. Do you have reason to believe this is happening? It's strongly believed to be happening in Canada, and this is the work the FBI is doing to link murders along American highways. It's been a popular theory for a while that there may be multiple serial killers moving along the highways. Likely truckers. All these borderline conspiracy theories. While mine is pretty mundane, military and intelligence. No one had any idea about the B-2 stealth bomber or the SR-71 until they were used, and not even for a while after that. With the SR-71. And there's still plenty of things we don't know about them. Lots of theory crafting on how to get a spy network or just intelligence in general into other countries. Both friendly and enemy. Because knowledge is power. You know. The boring stuff. Notably, Tom Clancy wrote a book that hypothesized the existence of an aircraft that matched the F-117 and prompted an investigation of the program for leaks. They found it was just him making a lucky guess. I've always been a fan of the conspiracy theory that the government was behind Throwback Thursdays as some sort of social experiment to get people to digitize and upload old pictures of themselves online so that they could use them to make facial recognition age progression algorithms better. That actually sounds pretty reasonable. I think they caught the Golden State Killer using DNA a very distant related cousin had sent into a 23andMe type thing. Manipulating what we see and how we react. Show people sad stories. They get sad and post sad stories. Show them happy ones. They get happy and post happy. Facebook already got in trouble for doing this without user consent. I have zero doubt the government was either in on it and or is still doing it. Assassination mini drones. If they weren't working on it before that creepy anti-army video came out, then someone is working on the possibilities now. Real augmentations to soldiers on an individual level. Reinforced limbs. Artificial skeletons and eyes. The possibilities are too potent to ignore that there is very likely some research going on somewhere, probably Africa. Everything we have caught them doing in our recent past is still believably going on because we haven't really given our government a reason to change. That includes illegal human experimentation. Editors from major publications, like the NIT, being on the CIA payroll. Mass surveillance by the NSA. Torture at black sites. They definitely torture at black sites. Why is there a CIA in Morocco next to nothing where they expedite people to? Definitely not taking advantage of interrogation laws, that's for sure. I'm about 99% convinced the nuclear scare a while back in Hawaii wasn't an accident at all, but a dry run to gather data in case we get to a point where the real deal might happen. What if it was a real threat, but the government handled it before it happened? Then they just play it off as an accident. This was my first thought as well. I was in Afghanistan standing post. One night we were watching over this valley and 7 different lights turned on in the sky. As bright as spotting flares. It illuminated the entire valley like it was daytime. We thought they were flares, but they stayed up and stayed bright for about 30 minutes. Slowly moving both left and then right. Then they winked out. All at once. The entire time. The radio was flooded with calls from everyone top down on what the hell just happened. I was in the infantry, so I knew all about arty flares and regular flares. Even our old timers had never seen anything like it. Probably something like MK Ultra. A lot of things to do with subliminal suggestion, advertising, and the way media is presented is all carefully crafted to give a specific narrative to us citizens. Geoengineering ring. So that if we don't get our act together before global warming gets out of control, we can do something like blast monatomic sulfur into the stratosphere or into strategic points in orbit to reduce the amount of sun hitting the planet and cool the earth if all else fails. And as we don't seem to be getting off our duff as a species really fast, it just might. Sadly, this is one of those sci-fi Saturday night solutions. Right up there with Sharknado, where one solution breeds 100 unexpected and deadly side effects that taken together could be even worse. Up to the point where the concerned scientists try to storm mission control to stop the launch, screaming no no no, while President for Life Pence presses the button and launches the rocket. And everything looks great for about 2 days until the sheet starts coming down. I think the government developed drugs that are as effective and coke or heroin or whatever, but doesn't have the negative side effects. And they just kept it a secret so they could party hard on the weekends. There's a drug that restores your dopamine and serotonin levels. Basically resets your brain to before you let drugs into your system. For anyone who reads comments that are this low, if you want to read about some absolutely terrifying experimentations, do some research on Japanese Unit 731 from WW2. The Japanese invaded China and used civilians by the thousands for everything from testing certain organs in specific weather conditions with specific injuries to tying people to posts that are stuck in the ground at certain increments and exploding huge bombs in order to test the hill range of the bomb and then let the medics try to save the patients without anesthetics. Internet hill switch. But not like an off switch. I mean like shadow banning. But can be applied selectively. By region. Website. Even demographic groups. Hard to notice if you're affected. Impossible for the rest who aren't. Strip technology and tools from a protest. Control the messaging to the media and thus from it. Then quietly and brutally end it. Peace forever, as long as we all behave. I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised if the government are using an awful lot of our digital footprint to learn a lot more about our behaviors and by extension how to influence them. Take all of the recent evidence of meddling with social media for the sake of winning referenda and elections worldwide. It doesn't take an awful lot to sway the mind of the ambivalent voter, and we're really going to have our Western democracy tested in the coming decades. I don't quite see what the solution to all of this is, but it's not going to be easy. It may involve an expensive amount of research into how to properly regulate it. Or it may just require my dad to come in and strike me with jumper cables. But I certainly believe that it's the biggest threat to the political status quo and the integrity of democracy. This is kinda crazy, but I've always had the idea that my phone's front camera is watching my reactions to certain media to figure out what I like or dislike without my input. Maybe not the government, but some big companies. I believe that the government can and does access our devices without our permission and doesn't give a shit about our consent. The world's social media addiction has handed corporations a regularly updated database of us, our relatives and circle of acquaintances, for free that they then sell to governments. I think that certain social movements are orchestrated by powerful people behind the scenes to enforce behavior and agendas, using our emotions and morals to move us in certain directions that make us think it was our idea all along. I also think that human experimentation is rampant, and that pharmaceutical companies do it all the time, and the politicians they lobby for keep it under wraps. Edited for clarity. Probably mind control tests. I mean complete mechanical control of your brain. It's theoretically possible, and the government has successfully hid things in the past and is able to silence vast amount of people. For mind control, look up MK Ultra, in that they do have the intentions. As for a conspiracy cover-up by the government regarding many people, look up the USS Liberty incident. They are normalizing the militarization of the police and the decay of constitutional rights under the guise of security. Now this is nothing new. But they aren't even trying to hide it anymore. So many crime dramas on TV are about skirting around due process to get the bad guys. Which sounds all well and good until the system turns on you and you suddenly realize why we had due process in the first place. The experiment is to see how far they can push it over time on mass media before anyone really complains. Figuring out how to shoot down satellites. If they take out China can't stop an assault. The US anti-satellite missile program has been mainstream public knowledge since the mid-80s. But late here. But I think the government has tested death. I would if I had the ability. You know. Just help people in a controlled environment and bring them back and ask what they saw. Etc. I got a good one. A bad one. And a twist. The good one. Survivability in a radioactive environment. I guarantee that every government is looking into ways of keeping their country running should it be hit with nuclear fallout. The bad one. Making something even bigger than a nuke. The nuclear arms race wasn't about using the nukes. It was enough to just have them. That way you can use it as leverage. Well. Now everyone has nukes. So we're back to an even playing field. The next step up from that would be antimatter bombs. Right now. We can make tiny quantities of antimatter in particle accelerators. But, to the public's knowledge, we haven't figured out how to store it. One, we can store it. And make large quantities of it. We have the ability to make bombs so devastating that they would make a nuke look like a hand grenade. The twist, the truly bizarre, messed up and morally horrific experiments probably isn't being done by governments, but corporations. Probably boring stuff like higher efficiency jet engines and improved materials. Those are things that would bring most general good for the military. I mean, they have to be doing human tests. I feel like that is the true secret of Area 51. Or other secret bases.